My friends, success is not simply what you achieve, it is who you become in the process. Build a mind that cannot be conquered by fear. Build a spirit that stands tall in storms. Build a life guided by purpose, responsibility, and unwavering integrity. Freedom begins in the mind long before it appears in your life, because every action, every decision, and every dream you pursue is shaped by what you believe is possible for you. Many people walk through life carrying an invisible weight: fear, doubt, insecurity, and old beliefs that were never theirs to begin with. These are the walls of an inner prison that no one else can see. Yet, it limits everything: your confidence, your potential, and even your future. True success demands breaking those walls, because nothing meaningful can be achieved while your mind remains confined by thoughts that work against you. This inner prison forms slowly. Sometimes it begins in childhood, when you are told you are not good enough, not smart enough, or not capable of more. Sometimes it happens through failure, when a single mistake convinces you that you are destined to fall again. Sometimes it is shaped by society, where expectations, comparisons, and opinions push you into a life that does not belong to you. When these thoughts take root, they shape how you see yourself. And once your self-image becomes small, your future becomes small with it. That is why mental freedom is the first and most important step toward true success. If you cannot believe in your own potential, no achievement will feel reachable. Freeing your mind begins with recognizing that fear is not your enemy. Fear is simply a barrier testing how badly you want your dream. Doubt is not a prophecy. It is only a thought. The world may try to define you, but those definitions cannot hold power unless you accept them. Mental freedom is the courage to question the beliefs that limit you. It is the strength to challenge every voice, internal or external, that tells you to shrink. It is choosing to define yourself by your possibilities instead of your past. Once your mind becomes free, your actions change, your choices change, and your path transforms. You stop making decisions based on fear and start making them based on purpose. You walk with clarity instead of confusion. You take risks not because you are unafraid, but because you know fear no longer controls you. And when fear loses its authority, courage begins to grow. Courage does not arrive loudly. It begins with quiet steps, speaking up when you feel silent, trying again when you want to quit, dreaming bigger when people expect you to remain small. Every act of courage strengthens your freedom, and with freedom, success becomes possible. Consider the example of a young woman who dreamed of becoming a lawyer. Her family believed education was wasted on her. Her community believed success belonged to others. She was told again and again that she did not have the intelligence, resources, or background to achieve anything significant. She carried these words for years, and they shaped her self-worth until her dream felt like a distant fantasy. But one day, she realized that the only thing stopping her was the belief that she was not enough. She decided to change that belief. She began to read, study, and work while others slept. She pushed through the fear of failure and replaced every doubt with determination. The moment she freed her mind from the limits others placed on her, she created a new path for herself. Years later, she stood in a courtroom, not as a spectator but as an advocate for justice. Her success did not begin the day she earned her degree. It began the day she freed her mind from the belief that she could not. This is the power of mental freedom. It turns doubt into strength, fear into fuel, and dreams into reality. When your mind is free, success is no longer a distant hope. It becomes a journey you walk with confidence, purpose, and unshakable belief. Freedom is choosing your values over pressure, even when the world tries to pull you in 100 different directions. It is the ability to stay rooted in what you believe, even when the environment around you becomes loud, demanding, or tempting. Many people lose themselves because they surrender their values just to be accepted, just to win faster, or just to avoid conflict. But success built on pressure is weak, fragile, and temporary. Only success built on values, honesty, integrity, respect, and purpose can stand the test of time. When you choose your values over pressure, you are not only shaping your future, you are shaping the kind of person you become on that journey. Pressure comes from many sources. Sometimes it comes from society, pushing you to fit into standards that do not align with your character. Sometimes it comes from friends who want you to take shortcuts. Sometimes it comes from your own fears telling you that principles might slow you down. But if you sacrifice your values for approval, you lose the very foundation that gives your life meaning. The world often praises quick success, even if it is built on questionable choices. But true freedom is refusing to bend your character just to move faster. It is choosing the difficult road because it leads to a future you can be proud of. When you honor your values, you walk freely, without guilt, without fear of being exposed, and without the burden of pretending to be someone you are not. Values act like a compass. When life becomes confusing or chaotic, they point you back to your true direction. People who live by their values are harder to influence and impossible to break because they do not depend on external approval. They do not bow to pressure for temporary gain, and they do not betray their principles for convenience. Their confidence comes from knowing that their success is built on truth. When you choose values over pressure, you develop a rare kind of strength, the strength of character. This strength allows you to look yourself in the mirror without regret and move forward with a clear conscience. One of the most important parts of choosing your values over pressure is understanding that easy paths rarely lead to meaningful destinations. It is easy to lie to avoid trouble. It is easy to take shortcuts. It is easy to do what everyone else is doing. But easy choices often create difficult consequences. On the other hand, difficult choices, standing up for what is right, speaking truth when silence is easier, working honestly when shortcuts are available, create a strong foundation for success. Values protect you from losing yourself in pursuit of your goals. They keep your success clean, your heart strong, and your future stable. Consider the example of a young entrepreneur who was building a small business. He faced tough competition, and to survive, many people advised him to use dishonest tactics, fake reviews, illegal shortcuts, or copying another company's ideas. He struggled because the pressure was real. Without quick success, his dream might collapse. One night, he stayed awake thinking about what decision to make. He imagined becoming successful through shortcuts, but he also imagined the guilt and fear of being exposed. Then he imagined succeeding through hard work and honesty, even if it took longer. He realized that if he lost his values, he would lose his identity. He chose integrity. He refused shortcuts and focused on quality, trust, and service. It took years, but eventually his business grew not because he followed the crowd, but because he stood firm when pressure tried to bend him. Customers trusted him, partners respected him, and his success became something he could be proud of. His victory was not only financial, it was moral. He remained free. This is what it means to choose values over pressure. It is choosing truth over convenience, character over speed, and purpose over approval. When you live by your values, your success becomes deeper, stronger, and far more meaningful. It becomes a success that cannot be shaken by circumstances or stolen by pressure. It becomes a success built on freedom. Taking responsibility is one of the greatest forms of freedom a person can experience, because the moment you accept ownership of your life, you stop waiting for the world to change and begin changing yourself. Many people spend years blaming circumstances, other people, or their past for where they are. They believe life is something that happens to them, not something they can shape. But blame is a cage. It keeps you stuck in the same place because it convinces you that you have no power. Responsibility, however, does the opposite. It unlocks your ability to influence your future. It shifts your mindset from "I can't because of them" to "I will because of me." That shift is the beginning of true success. Responsibility is not about guilt or self-punishment. It is not about holding yourself hostage for things that happened years ago. It is about recognizing that your choices today matter far more than your conditions yesterday. When you accept responsibility, you reclaim the power to decide, to act, and to grow. You stop waiting for perfect conditions because you understand that progress begins with your next step. Many people underestimate this simple truth. The most powerful freedom in life is the freedom to choose your response. You cannot control everything that happens, but you can control how you react, and your reaction is what builds your destiny. When you take responsibility, you stop seeing challenges as walls. Instead, you see them as opportunities to become stronger. You stop seeing failures as final. Instead, they become lessons that shape your wisdom. Responsibility transforms you because it shifts your focus from what you cannot control to what you can. It teaches you discipline, resilience, courage, and patience, all qualities necessary for meaningful success. Without responsibility, even the greatest opportunities are wasted. With responsibility, even the smallest opportunity can become the beginning of something extraordinary. This shift also changes the way you speak to yourself. Instead of saying, "I failed because someone didn't help me," you learn to say, "I failed, but I can learn and try again." Instead of saying, "Life is unfair," you begin to ask, "What can I do with the situation I have?" These questions open doors. They force your mind to search for solutions instead of excuses. And every solution you find makes you stronger, more capable, and more confident. A person who takes responsibility becomes unstoppable because they no longer depend on luck or permission. They depend on effort, growth, and determination. Consider the example of a young man who repeatedly failed his university exams. Each time he failed, he blamed the teachers, the system, and even his classmates. He believed the world was against him, and because of that belief, he never improved. His life became stagnant because he lived in the comfort of excuses. One day, after another disappointing result, he sat alone and realized a painful truth. Blaming others did not change anything. His life was not improving, and the only constant in all his failures was his refusal to take responsibility. That moment became his turning point. He chose to own his situation instead of running from it. He studied differently, asked for help, changed his habits, and focused on consistency. It was not easy. Responsibility never is. But slowly he improved. The next year, he passed every exam. Later, he graduated with distinction. What changed his life was not better teachers or better luck. It was a decision to take ownership of his failures and turn them into fuel for success. This is the power of taking responsibility. It frees you from helplessness and gives you the authority to shape your life. It transforms fear into action, mistakes into lessons, and pain into strength. When you embrace responsibility, you shift from reacting to life to directing it. Your future becomes something you build with your own hands, not something you wait for. That is true freedom. That is the foundation of real success. Freedom requires discipline, not laziness, because real freedom is not the absence of rules or effort. It is the ability to control your actions, your desires, and your direction. Many people believe that freedom is about doing whatever they want, whenever they want, without restraint. But this kind of freedom usually leads to chaos, inconsistency, and regret. True freedom is the opposite. It is the strength to choose what is right over what is easy, to act with purpose instead of impulse, and to build habits that support your highest goals rather than your temporary feelings. Discipline is the bridge between your dreams and your reality, because without it, every dream remains a fantasy. When you lack discipline, you become a prisoner of your emotions and your environment. If your mood decides everything, whether you study, work, exercise, or take care of yourself, you will live a life controlled by temporary feelings rather than long-term purpose. Laziness pretends to offer comfort, but it steals your potential quietly, day by day. It whispers that you can do it tomorrow, that it is okay to delay, that you deserve a break even when you have not earned progress. But every delayed action becomes a delayed life. Without discipline, you may gain short-term comfort, but you lose long-term achievements. Discipline, however, creates structure, consistency, and momentum. It teaches you to rise even when you feel tired, to keep going even when progress seems slow, and to stay committed even when no one is watching. It turns small, consistent actions into powerful results. A disciplined person is not perfect. They simply understand that doing the hard things today gives them the freedom to live better tomorrow. Discipline gives you freedom from regret, freedom from failure repeated through bad habits, freedom from fear caused by unpreparedness, and freedom from dependence on others. It gives you the freedom to choose your path with clarity and confidence. Another important truth is that discipline strengthens self-respect. When you discipline yourself, when you follow through with your goals, maintain your standards, and show up for your responsibilities, you begin to trust yourself. This trust becomes the foundation for bold choices and courageous action. Without discipline, self-respect weakens because you constantly break promises to yourself. With discipline, your identity grows stronger because you prove to yourself that you can depend on your own effort. Consider the example of a young athlete who dreamed of becoming a champion runner. At first, he relied on natural talent and believed that freedom meant training. Only when he felt motivated, he skipped morning practices, avoided difficult workouts, and preferred comfort over effort. For a while, he still managed to win small competitions. But as time passed, other athletes surpassed him. His performance declined, and he began to feel frustrated. He blamed luck, circumstances, and even the weather. But deep down, he knew the truth. He lacked discipline. One day, after losing a race he was expected to win, he made a choice. He realized that talent alone could not carry him to his dream. He committed to discipline. He woke up early every morning, whether he felt like it or not. He followed a strict training plan, ate healthier, slept earlier, and focused on consistency over excitement. At first, it was difficult. His body resisted, and his mind complained. But day by day, discipline became his new strength. Months later, he returned to the track, not just faster, but more confident, more focused, and more capable. He started winning again, not because he was the most talented, but because he had built the discipline to unlock his full potential. His success came from freedom, the freedom to become who he wanted to be, because he mastered the discipline others avoided. This is the essence of true freedom. It is not the freedom to avoid hard work. It is the freedom earned through hard work. Discipline frees you from the limitations of laziness, excuses, and inconsistency. It gives you the power to rise above your impulses and choose intentional, meaningful action. When you embrace discipline, you open the door to your greatest potential. And in that potential, you discover the truest form of freedom, the freedom to shape your life with purpose and strength. Purpose gives freedom its direction, its meaning, and its strength. Without purpose, even a life filled with choices can feel empty or confusing. You may have the freedom to go anywhere, do anything, or explore countless opportunities. But if you do not know why you are moving, you end up wandering instead of progressing. Purpose transforms freedom from something scattered into something powerful. It becomes the anchor that holds you steady in storms and the compass that guides your actions towards something meaningful. When you discover your purpose, you stop chasing approval, trends, and distractions. You begin to focus your energy on what truly matters. And that focus brings a deep sense of fulfillment. A life without purpose feels heavy because directionless effort drains your spirit. You may work hard but feel empty. You may succeed in the eyes of others but feel lost inside. You may achieve comfort but not satisfaction. Without purpose, success has no soul. You keep moving, but your movement feels like a cycle rather than progress. Many people live this way, busy, active, overwhelmed, but not fulfilled. They confuse motion with meaning and effort with purpose. True success cannot grow in this soil because success requires clarity. It requires a destination. Purpose gives you that destination. Purpose also strengthens your freedom by giving you something to stand for. When you know why you are here, the opinions of others matter less. Pressure loses its power. Fear becomes smaller. You no longer seek the easy path, you seek the meaningful one. Purpose gives you the courage to endure challenges because you understand what you are fighting for. It gives you patience during slow seasons because you know your work has a direction. It gives you resilience during setbacks because you know your mission is bigger than one moment of difficulty. People with purpose are harder to break because they move with conviction, not confusion. Another powerful truth is that purpose multiplies your energy. When you work only for rewards, you grow tired quickly. But when you work for purpose, your spirit becomes your fuel. You feel alive even when the work is hard. You wake up with clarity and you rest with satisfaction. Purpose turns ordinary actions into meaningful steps. It transforms challenges into growth and transforms sacrifices into investments. It gives your freedom a reason, a direction, and a heartbeat. Finding purpose is not about discovering some grand mission written in the sky. It begins with asking what gives your life meaning, what impact you want to create, and what strengths you naturally carry. Purpose often reveals itself through service, contribution, passion, or a cause that stirs your heart. When you align your life with that purpose, everything becomes clearer. Your decisions become simpler because you know what serves your mission and what distracts from it. Your time becomes more valuable because you understand what is worth your energy. Purpose makes your freedom intentional. Consider the example of a young nurse who once felt lost in her career. She entered nursing because it was stable and respected, but she did not feel inspired by it. Every day felt heavy, and even though she worked hard, she felt disconnected. She envied people who woke up excited about their lives. One evening, she encountered an elderly patient who felt hopeless and alone. Instead of simply performing her duties, she spent extra time talking with him, listening to his stories, and offering comfort. Days later, she saw his spirit lift because someone cared. For the first time, she felt something powerful, a sense of purpose. She realized her calling was not just medical care, it was healing through compassion. That clarity changed everything. She pursued additional training, volunteered in struggling communities, and began leading programs for elderly patients. Work no longer felt heavy, it felt meaningful. Purpose transformed her freedom from a path of routine into a mission of impact. This is what purpose does. It turns confusion into clarity and effort into fulfillment. It gives your freedom direction, energy, and strength. When you live with purpose, you stop simply existing, you begin truly living. You rise with intention, you act with courage, and you create a life that leaves a lasting footprint long after you are gone. Freeing yourself from the past is one of the most powerful choices you can make for your future, because the past, when carried too heavily, becomes a silent force that shapes your present decisions, your confidence, and your identity. Many people live their entire lives imprisoned, not by physical walls, but by memories of failure, hurt, rejection, or mistakes they regret. They replay moments they cannot change, allowing old wounds to govern new opportunities. But the truth is simple. The past is a lesson, not a sentence. It is a teacher, not a jailer. Your future begins the moment you stop allowing yesterday to dictate who you can become today. The past often holds you through emotions. Shame from what you did, pain from what was done to you, or fear from moments when you fell short. These emotions can become chains if you let them define you. The mind has a habit of revisiting old stories, especially the painful ones, because the human heart remembers hurt more sharply than joy. You begin to believe that your past failures determine your future potential, or that past pain predicts future suffering. You may even avoid new opportunities because you fear repeating old mistakes. In this way, the past becomes a barrier that stops you from stepping into the life you are meant to live. But freeing yourself from the past does not mean forgetting it or pretending it never happened. It means accepting that it happened and choosing not to stay frozen in that moment. It means understanding that who you were is not who you must remain. Growth is the ability to take lessons from yesterday and use them to build a stronger, wiser version of yourself today. You are not the person who failed. You are the person who survived. You are not the person who was broken. You are the person still standing. And you are not the person who made mistakes. You are the person capable of learning, changing, and rising. Letting go of the past requires courage because it asks you to face your pain honestly. It asks you to forgive yourself for not knowing better at the time. It asks you to stop reopening old wounds and start nurturing new strength. It is easier to stay attached to the familiar pain than to step into unfamiliar possibility, but real freedom lives beyond that fear. When you let go, you make room for new ideas, new relationships, new goals, and new victories. You reclaim energy that was stuck in old memories and redirect it toward building the future you desire. When you release the past, your perspective shifts. You start seeing challenges not as reminders of past failure, but as opportunities to prove how much you have grown. You start viewing yourself with compassion instead of criticism. You begin to understand that the past was necessary. It shaped your character, taught you resilience, and revealed your strength. Without those experiences, you would not have the wisdom you carry now. Freeing yourself from the past allows you to rise with clarity, grounded not in what hurt you, but in what you learned. Consider the example of a man who once dreamed of becoming a writer. In his early 20s, he submitted his first book to publishers, only to receive harsh rejections. One publisher told him his writing was unoriginal, and another said he lacked talent. Those words cut deeply. Humiliated, he abandoned writing altogether. For years, he carried the belief that he was not good enough, that his dream was foolish. He avoided opportunities to write, convinced he would fail again. His past rejection became a wall that locked him out of his own potential. One day, while cleaning his home, he found an old notebook filled with stories he had written in his youth. As he read them, he felt something he had not felt in years: hope. He realized that the only thing stopping him from writing again was the memory of rejection. He decided that his past would no longer decide his future. He began writing again, slowly at first, then passionately. He took classes, improved his craft, and eventually published a new manuscript. This time, he received not rejection, but praise. Years of progress were waiting for him on the other side of letting go. This is the power of freeing yourself from the past. It opens doors that were always meant for you. It gives you the chance to rewrite your story with strength rather than fear. When you let go, you do not lose anything, you gain everything. Clarity, courage, peace, and a future full of possibility. The past can shape you, but it should never imprison you. Your life is waiting beyond the walls you have outgrown. Dreaming bigger is one of the boldest expressions of freedom, because when you dare to imagine a life beyond your current reality, you break the invisible boundaries the world has placed around you. Most people live inside limits. They did not choose limits created by fear, by society's expectations, by their environment, or by the opinions of others. Over time, these limits become so familiar that they stop questioning them. They begin to believe that dreaming too big is unrealistic, foolish, or dangerous. But the truth is this: the world only changes because of people who had the courage to dream beyond what was considered possible. Every breakthrough, every invention, every movement, and every great achievement began as a dream that someone refused to shrink. Dreaming bigger is not about ignoring reality. It is about refusing to let reality dictate your destiny. It means seeing more in yourself than others see in you. It means imagining a future that your current circumstances cannot yet support. This kind of dreaming requires courage, because it invites judgment, doubt, and resistance. People fear big dreamers because big dreams challenge the smallness of their own thinking. They may tell you to be realistic, not because your dream is impossible, but because they cannot imagine it for themselves. But if you allow their doubts to become your beliefs, you will live a life shaped by their limitations instead of your potential. Courageous dreaming is also an act of self-respect. It is the refusal to settle for less than what your spirit knows you are capable of. It is honoring your gifts, your potential, and your purpose. When you dream bigger, you give yourself permission to grow, evolve, and rise above the life you were born into. You stop asking, "Can I do this?" and begin asking, "What would happen if I tried?" That shift in perspective opens doors that once seemed locked. Dreams are the seeds of your future. When you plant them boldly, you invite growth you could never have imagined. But dreaming alone is not enough. You must pursue those dreams with determination. Courageous dreaming requires action. It demands effort, resilience, and perseverance, because big dreams come with big challenges. You will face failure, setbacks, and moments of uncertainty. Yet each challenge is not a sign to stop, it is a sign that you are growing into the person capable of achieving the dream. The bigger the dream, the more powerful the transformation. When you chase a dream that stretches you, you develop strengths you never knew you had. You discover new parts of yourself: discipline, creativity, resolve, courage. That journey becomes just as valuable as the dream itself. The freedom to dream bigger also breathes life into those around you. When people see someone daring to pursue something extraordinary, it inspires them to look beyond their own limitations. Your courage becomes a spark that helps others believe in possibilities they had forgotten. In this way, dreaming bigger is not a selfish act, it is a gift to the world. It reminds others that life can be more than survival. It can be growth, impact, and legacy. Consider the example of a young boy from a small, struggling town who dreamed of becoming a world-class architect. Everyone around him thought his dream was unrealistic. They told him to choose something practical, something achievable within the boundaries of where he came from. His family had little money, the opportunities were limited, and no one from his town had ever pursued such a profession. For a long time, he believed them, but deep down, the dream never faded. One day, a teacher noticed his talent for drawing buildings and encouraged him to enter a design competition. He hesitated, thinking he wasn't good enough, but eventually he submitted his work. To his surprise, he won. That small victory cracked open the walls that had confined his thinking. Instead of shrinking his dream, he allowed it to grow. He pursued scholarships, worked late nights, studied intensely, and refused to give up even when the challenges seemed overwhelming. Years later, he not only became an architect, but his designs transformed communities across the world. His success did not come from luck. It came from the courage to dream far beyond what others believed possible, and the determination to make that dream real. This is the power of dreaming bigger. It is the freedom to imagine a future greater than your present, the courage to believe in the impossible, and the strength to pursue it with unwavering determination. When you dare to dream bigger, you do not just change your life, you change your destiny.